Welcome back to my channel, and for those of you that do not know me, my name is Brian Heron, and you're watching my video because you want to see my worst investment of all time. This is my worst investment. Right after you hit the subscribe and the like button. So I owned a duplex up here in central New York. I bought it for a reasonable price, but the thing is about this property is it looks like a home run on a piece of paper, which is why you always do your due diligence. And it should have been a home run, but I was somewhat making a lot of mistakes that I knew better, making some rookie mistakes here. The property was already rented out. I inherited tenants. Not always the funnest thing to do. One downstairs was a pretty good tenant. He paid consistently for the most part, late a lot. The upstairs tenant ended up having to evict that tenant, so that thing sat empty for several months, didn't collect rent for several months. So to give you a timeline on this property, I owned this property for about 4 years. I bought it in March of 2019, and I ended up selling the property in January of this year, 2023. Cost me roughly, I want to say right around $7,000–8,000 to rehab this property. New flooring, painting, had to put a new sink, tub, and everything into the upstairs unit. You're gonna see a common thread with this upstairs unit because I pretty much had the same tenant downstairs until the near end of this property. So I end up putting a new tenant in upstairs for 1 year. Great tenant, paid on time. That year goes by. Then the next tenant I placed in there, I thought I did my best. I talked about vetting your tenants in a previous video where I talked about income-based housing. The link is down below, but I didn't take my own advice. I had a young person and her friend, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna give these two a chance here. Really no credit to speak of, never lived out on their own. And the only reason why I did that is because the previous tenant was in a similar situation and they did great. And I said, hey, if it worked once, it can also work twice. The point is I failed in many areas with vetting this person. So I put them into this unit, and within 2 months was there with a buddy who had to bring a bat for protection just in case. There was like 15 people, a huge party, cops were there. I show up to this place and I had not been up there in 2 months. And then I go upstairs and I walked in and there was literally spray paint on the walls. I walked through to the bathroom and it was a brand new bathroom that we had just put in. And they got this purple hair dye and they had just plastered it all over the tub, the walls, the floor. And I tried to get that stuff cleaned up, didn't come out. So guess what I got to do after I just did it? Replace the whole bathroom. Walk into the bedroom and guess what? They completely damaged the window to a point of having to replace the window. There were holes in the wall. I mean, almost like you name it and they did it. So I thought. So I get these people out. I had an agreement. I had to pay them to leave. I said, listen, I will give you $100 to be out, you know, by the end of the month. And I'd forgive all the past rent. I ended up losing a lot of money on that deal. I had to go back in and do another rehab. So now this apartment's produced me basically 1 year's worth of rent. And now it's cost me $8,000, right around $7,000 to $8,000 my first rehab. It cost me a couple hundred my second rehab. And it cost me $5,000 this rehab. It gets better. Stuff they're not gonna tell you that can go wrong with owning real estate. So now I get a new, I'm going through my stuff. I'm not gonna make the same mistake. I do my ad, I vet this person, and they meet all my criteria, and the things that were negative were from years ago. And the great thing about this is I seen in their credit report was that they had their stuff was old collections from medical, and then I seen there's still a couple on there, but there were a handful that were fixed, repaired, meaning that person paid off those collections. They're actually making strides to make themselves better. I felt pretty good about them, and so I rented to them. Everything went well for the first, I want to say maybe year. And then all of a sudden, he got upset about something. This is why I say relationships are so important. He got upset about something the tenant below had said to him. And by the way, that's another mistake I made. He was referred to me by the tenant below. Never rent to friends and families of your tenants in other units. This tenant moved in. After about a year, they got upset about, actually it was the sewer backed up. I had no clue about it. He said that it was reported to me by the previous tenant, or by the tenant below. He said that they had texted me. The truth was that they never texted me. I even texted to that tenant, is the basement leaking? Because the upstairs tenant is telling me that it is and that you reported it. Because I meant to report it, but I had forgot, yeah, it's been leaking for it's been backed up for about a month. So now I can understand the frustration of the tenant. So being who I am, I get somebody right out there the very next morning. Problem solved, so I thought. The tenant said they were gonna pay the rent now that the problem had been fixed. Guess what they didn't do? They didn't keep their word. They didn't pay it. And then month after month went by. And then I started getting a little more forceful, saying, hey, listen, you know, you're in violation of this lease. And he goes,
what can you do about it? It's COVID. You're not allowed to evict me.
lucky. So I had to deal with this tenant all the way for another 6, 7, 8 months, doing Lord knows what because I wasn't allowed in there. But meanwhile, still requiring me to make repairs to their unit. Long story short, they weren't doing anything but costing me more money, paying all these, extra expenses while they're living rent free because of COVID. COVID restriction gets lifted. Finally, I tell him, listen, I don't want to, have to, evict you. Why don't you leave quietly? I don't want to put eviction on your credit report. That would be very bad for you. His buddy moved out downstairs. He said he'd be out by a certain date. Now I travel a lot, so I'm out traveling. So I have my property manager swing by the property to see if they're out because they said they'd be out by the end of the month. Thank God. They were gone. Thought my troubles were finally over. I can get these 2 places rehabbed, get them rented back out. Property manager called me up and said, Brian, it's -6 degrees today. And I said, yeah. He goes, well, all your windows are open. They dumped wax down the drains. That bathroom that I just repaired for the 2nd time, brand new, we have to do it a 3rd time. All the plumbing had to be replaced. I had very expensive vinyl plank flooring put into this unit. They gouged it with, I don't know what, backsides of hammers or whatever. I mean, holes everywhere. They literally must have taken a knife. They cut the entire wall of drywall and broke it. So I had to rehab that apartment as well. Long story short, it cost me $30,000 more dollars. We've got a $30,000, a $7,000, and a $5,000 rehab, and then we have to throw $1,000 for those extra repairs. It sounds a lot like I was about $43,000 into the negative. Add in the $58,000 that I paid, and only maybe about $10,000 in rent I collected. Oh gosh. That's not what I signed up for. Here's the important thing that I want you to take away from this video is that make sure that if you have a system in place that you vet your tenants the way you say you're gonna vet them. If you own a small duplex, triplex, or fourplex, do not rent to friends and family because they'll end up teaming up against you. I hope you got a lot out of this video on what not to do when you're vetting your tenants. Learn from me, my $40-something thousand mistake. And I wanna also let you know, just because this is the worst investment ever made, understand that this is the only investment I have ever lost money on out of the dozens and dozens and dozens of investments I've made throughout my investing career. But it's bound to happen. Nobody bats 1,000. Until next time, I am Brian Heron. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you again.